Hey all, this is 2 of 4 in our ongoing MECC iteration sync. Sid is joining me today. We're going to be talking about fast decisions. In our first one, which is also on GitLab Unfiltered, we went over informed decisions, and you can look at that one, see where it was, and the new changes have been merged into production on that page. So if you're just catching up, MECC stands for Managing So Everyone Can Contribute. So this is a management philosophy to speed up company progress by creating the environment for better decisions and improved execution of them. GitLab pioneered MECC, and we continue to steward its development. And we're using these sessions to provide transparency into how we're iterating on it and building towards an awesome certification that we hope to have stood up soon for both internal team members and the wider community. So with that, I will toss it over to Sid. He'll screen share the fast decisions page. There's several examples that have been merged so far, but we're going to try to go through these one by one and see if we can't improve them.
Well, thanks for that, Darren, and thanks for the page. I'm only going to talk about stuff we can improve. I think it's already at a really good level, but we can always do better. So let's dive into it. Iteration, great example. I think while relevant, like making small merge requests, it links to our values. So again, I don't think it's really an example. Let's link to, like, we were planning to do X, but then after Y, we changed it into that. For example, there's I think 5, maybe 10 recordings of iteration office hours, which are just chock full of great examples. So I think this really could use a link to iteration office hours. I think we should have a real example. And I think making small merge requests, it kind of sounds easy. I think it might need a little bit more. Like when you tell people to make smaller, what's a merge request? But when you tell people to make smaller changes, won't they game the system? Actually, they will, and it's great. And it makes things better because they happen faster. We're using MR rate in engineering as one of the key metrics. That's awesome. We should probably talk about that too here. Here, short toes. The example is I make a merge request, people don't like it, and I close it. I'm not sure that's short toes. Like short toes is when someone else kind of makes a proposal for your domain. I'm the CEO, like everything is my domain, basically. So it's certainly not a peer making a horizontal proposal. So, well, I think it's a good example of maybe low ego or don't get too attached to your things. I think this is the best example of kind of speak truth to power. Like in the end, the best opinion should win, not the highest paid person. That's what this is an example of, not of short toes. So I think we should have a different example here.
Cool. Agreed. Thanks for that. That's a nice clarification.
Proposals. It's a good example of like, hey, we start with a proposal. I think there was something about brainstorming here. Traditional organizations often use brainstorming meetings as a crutch. Gathering input before taking action. I think we're not anti-brainstorm. I think there's literature that shows that brainstorming is more effective if everyone does it on their own and then you pull all the proposals. So it's better to do it async. We're not saying that just make a proposal is an alternative for creative expansion thinking or something like that. It seems almost like make a proposal is an alternative to brainstorming, which it's not. For brainstorming, just do it async. Don't do it in a meeting. You'll get fewer proposals. Example isn't really an example. I love the focus on proposals. Maybe we shouldn't go into brainstorming, or we should give async brainstorming as a way to speed things up. Maybe it can be its own paragraph. Up to you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll give you some context from my side. I think async proposals, or I agree with you on that. I think where I was going with the example was not group brainstorming versus async brainstorming. It was complaining or griping about a certain thing without offering a proposal in concert with it. And that's so if you read the example that's there, when a team member disagrees with a given policy. So instead of complaining with nothing to bounce off of, no written proposal. Does that make sense?
To a certain extent, like I don't want people kind of not complaining because we use like, oh, you should have a proposal. Well, sometimes it's somebody else, something is really broken and someone else's job to figure it out. Like you can't have like our salespeople, you're not allowed to question the reliability of GitLab.com without making an infrastructure proposal. That would be ridiculous. So I'm not a big fan of that. What I am a big fan of is like, you don't get to, like, it's super inefficient to be in a meeting and trying to figure something out. So it's much more efficient for one person to do some homework beforehand and at least have a proposal to give feedback on for that meeting. That's a much better use of everybody's time. That's what proposals are about. It's not about a license to complain. It's about, look, it's better for one person to spend 2 hours coherently making a proposal than for 7 people to spend 25 minutes trying to do that in a meeting. First of all, that's more time spent. Second of all, it won't be as coherent. Third of all, there's all kinds of weird dynamics that happen in that meeting where people get into entrenched positions. Fourth, you still need the meeting criticizing the work afterwards. So you haven't saved the meeting. That's I think what come with a proposal is about.
Great context. This one will be much stronger on the other side. Thanks for that.
Thanks for being open to the suggestion. DRI, great. If a team member wishes to change something, they are chosen as the DRI. There's no relationship between these two things. The DRI is the person whose result metric is affected, or the person who has to do the work. I think the person who does the work frequently is, well, we said short toes, like you can make a proposal about somebody else's work. So our whole point is that those two aren't the same. We're implying that they're the same. So let's not imply that.
Could you give me more? Oh, sorry. My question there was going to be, can someone, we'll add some clarity on how DRIs are chosen. They may be selected by someone who is more senior than them, but what are other ways that DRIs would?
Most of the time, it's just the person whose result metric is related, right? If it's the uptime of GitLab.com, it's infrastructure, it's Steve. And if it's, I don't know, making sure that our messaging is compliant with legal standards, is Rashmi. Like it's most of the time there's already a person whose job that is. And if it's a judgment call, management can help.
Okay.
Things like this, like consensus becomes less relevant. No, we don't do consensus here. That's the point of a DRI. Like there's a person who makes the decisions and they have to read the feedback, but they don't even have to respond. So I'd go a bit more, bit extremer. There's also there's a part about how we make decisions at GitLab. We combine the best of a hierarchical and a consensus-based organization. I think that should come back here. Does that ring a bell? This part, this is one of the core aspects of GitLab.
Okay.
I think this should come. This might be a section to refer to it.
I see. Okay.
Informal communication to build trust. Yep. Great. Yep, great example. Consider making it a real example. Two-way doors. Again, let's give a real example here of like, this is a one-way door decision, this is a two-way door decision. Oh, and the best is we figured out how to make this one-way or two-way. Those are the best ones.
What could you give context on that?
So what's a one-way door decision? For example, a pricing change is a one-way door. Like you can't really retract that. But what you can do is like test it out with a coupon you send to a select number of people to see whether they're interested. Now suddenly you can test it without being bound to it.
Is the thought there? I'll tell you where I try to go with this. Whenever I'm faced with what appears to be a one-way door decision, I try to apply iteration to it and see if there are smaller two-way doors that I can open and close before getting to the one-way. Is that what you were referring to?
Exactly. And sometimes that's possible, sometimes it isn't, but you should always try to make a one-way into a two-way, frequently by iteration, sometimes by just doing it, packaging it a bit differently.
And because this is in the fast decision sections, the thought there is you can go faster making smaller two-way door decisions instead of waiting.
Yeah, because like suppose every decision has a chance of failure. And suppose it's always 20%. If it's a one-way door decision, you want to do more diligence because you can't reverse the decision. Like if suppose your time frame is like 5 years or something like that. If it's a two-way door, you're going to be stuck. If it's a one-way door, you're stuck with that decision for 5 years. If it's a one-way door, that decision is only in place for 5 months, only 10% of the time. So it's 20% versus 20% times 10% of the time, which is 2%. Like if there's a 2% chance of failure, that's much lower. And the data you collect can go down by an order of magnitude. The data you collect upfront to support the decision can both go down by an order of magnitude. So you can make it faster because there's less diligence needed.
Good stuff. We made it through all the examples. Anything else that you'd like to add here?
It might be too much of a plug for our product, but basically the value that GitLab as a DevOps platform delivers is cycle time, making a shorter time between deciding to do something and getting the result out there. Now, I'm not sure how to kind of apply that to a management framework. Like it shouldn't be like, hey, you should use a platform everywhere or something like that. But there's some energy there. I just don't know how to add it.
Okay, I'll think about it. Good stuff.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Darren.
Absolutely.